farmers, unrest has taken over Europe, from epicenter France to neighboring Germany, Spain and Italy to countries as far as Greece are witnessing massive protests. The protesters aim to press governments to ease environmental rules and shield them from rising costs and cheap imports. Farmers have gathered outside the EU Parliament in Brussels as the EU summit has now concluded. They were seen throwing eggs, starting fires near the building and setting off fireworks. Police tried to disperse the protesters with water at EU Parliament. These protests across Europe precede European Parliament elections scheduled for June this year. Farmers represent a growing constituency for the far right, which is expected to gain in the upcoming polls. Paris police arrested about 79 protesters at the giant Rungis food market, which is the where farmers try to block with their tractors. Police said that those arrested entered a storage site, causing some unspecified damage inside. Now, the market, a hub for produce for France and beyond, and one of the largest of its kind in the world, has become a symbolic target for angry farmers, many of whom have travelled hundreds of kilometres in their tractors to get there. Over in Italy now, hundreds of farmers with tractors blocked traffic near motorway access points outside Milan, in Tuscany and elsewhere. Farmers say that they are not paid enough, are choked by taxes and green rules, and also face unfair competition from abroad, specifically from cheap Ukrainian imports. Farmers in Greece also lined highways with their tractors, briefly shutting arteries in a symbolic protest as mobilizations grow in the country. Farmers say that they are facing rising production costs while prices remain low. A summit of European Union leaders is set for later today. The bloc's executive commission has made proposals to limit farm imports from Ukraine and ease some green regulations. Now, these announcements, however, failed to stop many farmers from Belgium and beyond from driving their tractors into Brussels city centre ahead of a rally planned to coincide with Thursday's Leaders Summit. Tractors were seen around European Parliament while police cordoned off the Commission and Council buildings. While the farmers' crisis is not officially on the agenda of the EU summit, it is bound to be discussed. Now, to discuss this further, we are being joined by our correspondent Alex Cadier from Brussels. Alex, what is the latest you are hearing from Brussels now that the EU summit has concluded?
Well, when it comes to that leaders meeting, which is about 5-minute walk from here, it's just around the corner from here, they have agreed this historic deal for a €50 billion, $54 billion package of support for Ukraine's civilian aid, money to help the Ukrainian government ensure public services can continue running. That is something that has been long awaited, months in the making, because Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, was blocking that civilian aid to Ukraine, blocking the way the other 26 EU member states wanted to provide that aid and blocking that help. Some of the member states suggesting because of his close relationship with Vladimir Putin and with the Russian state. But now those EU 27 member states have reached a deal when it comes to that support for Ukraine, welcomed by Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president. So certainly that has been that news breaking in the last few moments. But as you can see around me, quite a few other big stories here in Brussels.
Alex, if you could tell us the latest that you're hearing from the farmers' protest that is going on. Did the leaders manage to discuss anything on the sidelines?
Well, on the sidelines, it has certainly been discussed. And actually, the Belgian Prime Minister, Alexander De Croo, when he came out to speak to the press this morning, we heard him address this very clearly, saying that these issues expressed by the farmers have to be heard the European Parliament President Roberta Metsola also at the meeting saying the message to European farmers is that we hear you. You can probably see behind me they've lit some bonfires just a few moments ago. About just over my shoulder, protesters were throwing bricks at police. This got quite heated, quite tense. The message from the farmers is that their production costs are through the roof, but the price at which they sell their products is through the floor, and so they are not going to be financially viable for long. And that is one of the key issues being expressed by these farmers, saying that they want to continue, but without farmers, the European Union will not have food. That is the message. Now, the counter-argument, or one of the things that some of the leaders are saying, is that actually European farmers are some of the most subsidised in the world. About 20% of the EU's budget goes to direct subsidies for farmers across the European Union, but that hasn't stopped these particular farmers coming here and having their voices heard.
All right, Alex, given that the European Parliament elections are scheduled for June this year, it's not very far away. Could you explain the urgency of this and how much of the pressure is actually building for the leaders?
Well, it's going to be a serious consideration for those leaders, particularly for the parliamentarians who sit in that big building behind me in the European Parliament. If you had walked just 50 metres behind me, you would see a massive banner that says European elections, and behind them a line of police. Behind that line of police are these disgruntled tractors who are currently shouting at law enforcement. This will be a crucial issue, particularly for far-right parties and far-left parties trying to attract support from farmers across the European Union. We've seen them here today. It's a rather broad mix of political representations here. We've seen farmers speaking to and interacting to some of the far-right parties, some of the far-left parties. So it's certainly going to be a key issue for those elections in just under 6 months' time.
All right, Alex, thank you so much for getting us all those live updates from the ground in Brussels.